Hey folks, Kurt with Manana No Mas here, and today I wanted to talk about something that I feel is incredibly relevant right now, especially, and this isn't just for agencies like the space that I am in, but this is for clients of agencies like the space you might be in. So I found an article. Actually, the article found me. It was part of that, too long didn't read newsletter listing that comes out in email sometimes. And at the risk of this being an echo chamber, this was a really great write up as to some of the fears and anxieties and anticipations that I'm running into in dealing with clients and the whole topic of AI. See, here's where we're at. I work primarily in WordPress. Now we do some other things. Like I just helped a client with a Learn Upon setup. So, it's not like I only do WordPress, but I do a lot of WordPress work. And WordPress is known for being, free, for being open. It's open source and you can modify it and you can customize a lot of things. And with that mentality, with the idea that I can do anything, when you look at a client and you go, we can do anything. Sometimes people go off the rails a little bit. And so lately, now AI's only been out for, AI at the level we think of AI. So let's be more clear. Let's be really clear about how we're having the discussion. AI at the level of AI that we're experiencing now has only been out for a couple of years. And so yeah, there's been different levels of AI for, decades, right? There's been certain ways that we have used automation tools to do certain things. And some people would say, well, that wasn't really AI, that was more like this or that was more like that. But now we're dealing with the idea that we can ask a question and be connected to, multiple streams of answers. And part of what I don't like about AI is this very topic of where the answers come from. You used to do a search. You used to jump into a search engine, before Google really restricted the search results. You would be able to go in and you would search for something in a browser. God, trying to use the right language is hard. You would go to search for something in a browser on some search engine, and you would get just a list of resources. And then you as a human being would be able to say, okay, let's look at this one. Okay, let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. And now with AI, you ask AI a question, it goes, here's your answer. And we're getting more and more feedback about how AI is trying to make you feel good or something. Like it's trying to say, oh, you're a genius. This is perfect for you. This is the answer. Instead of giving you any pushback to say, well, that's a crazy idea. Why did you think of that? Whereas if you did a universal search and had access to everything that had that kind of input, you would be able to say, oh, well, that's a good thing. That's a bad thing. That's a medium thing. Let me weigh the pros and cons here. So again, I'm trying to frame this so we can get to the topic. And the topic is, as a client, should I ask AI to develop me a custom plugin? You might hear that from me and go, Kirk, that sounds crazy. I would never, ever do that. It's not crazy. I have people coming to me all the time saying, how come this platform doesn't do XYZ? A perfect example, Lifter LMS. Time and time again, people say, oh, I want the reporting to go to the front end. I don't want people to have to go to the back end of the website to see the reporting. Okay. And then I respond and say, we have developers that can develop that for you, and we could put that up to the front end for you. And they go, oh, I'll just ask AI to do that. You'll just ask AI to do that. Do you have a background in coding? Do you have a background in PHP development? Do you have a background in WordPress plugin development? Do you have what makes you qualified? And this is not talking down to people. This is but it's like, where is this coming from? Like, you hired us to build this website for you presumably because we're the experts and you want to focus on running your business and leave the website to the experts. But then when the experts say this requires an extra step, pardon me, all of a sudden we go, oh, I'll just ask AI for that. So here's what happens. In my book, I think people go to AI and they go, oh, AI, make this thing for me. And then they make this thing. I quite literally have had customers send me the files that AI has made for them, send me the files and say, I had AI make these files for me to make a plugin, but I don't know where to put them. Can you just load that up for me? It shouldn't take you long. Who's responsible for the outcome? Who's responsible? Because if I load that nondescript, I have no idea what it is package that you gave me into your website and it implodes, who's responsible for that? And then people will say, oh, well, didn't you have a backup, or didn't you this, or what could that be on a staging site? Yeah, those are all things that take time and money, right? So at what point do we follow this rabbit trail and make all these micro investments to find out that something didn't work? See, I believe that AI is great for people that already know or have a base understanding in something. Sometimes it can enhance your understanding of something, but to replace any existing understanding of something, I think is a gross misuse of the tool. And so people have said to me, here's this plugin. I want you to put this on my website, or can't you just load this up real quick? It shouldn't take any time. And I go, okay, we need to have our team review the code, test its functionality, put it on a staging site first, make sure nothing on your website goes cattywampus with a conflict. And then I need to be clear that any repercussion from making your own custom plugin that happens on the site or with your users is your responsibility and not the responsibility of our agency. And people think I'm being paranoid. I am not being paranoid. We are in an era now where use of personal information, GDPR and all these things about like collecting email information or collecting data, like all these things you are responsible for. And there are certain rules and regulations that plugins and software companies have to follow, and agencies as a subcategory of that have to follow. And so if you tell AI to make some kind of funky plugin and it makes some kind of funky plugin, and there's something in that plugin that extracts information back to AI for learning model training, if there is something in there that somehow shares the user's information or private comments or something like that with other entities in the site or other sites, or right, this goes on and on. Because when you give me a folder and say, put this zip folder in my website, and I have no idea what that zip folder does, and I have no idea who made it. Like you say, oh, well, I made it through AI. It's got to be safe. Okay, who's AI? Who is AI? Who's responsible? When our agency uses software from Lifter LMS, I know that I can go to Chris, the owner of Lifter LMS, and I can say, Chris, I got a problem. I need your help with this. When I use Fluent CRM, Fluent Form, Fluent Support, Fluent SMTP, I can go to Manage Ninja Pros and I can say, hey, you guys made these tools. I'm having a problem. What about this? When Presto Player has a problem, I can go to Adam and say, Adam, I've got a problem. And by the way, Presto Player has amazing support. Like, they just fix things, right? When I am working on a project with WP Tonic, I can go to Jonathan and say, hey, Jonathan, we're having a data issue here. We need to fix this. Okay. If I have a problem with a plugin that my client gave me that was made on AI, who do I go to for that support? And when WordPress does its big updates, right now they say they're only going to do one update a year, but like when they do their big updates, and then Elementor does the update, and Brix does the update, and Astra does the update, and Cadence does, where I'm going with this. Everything's getting updated. What's happening to your custom plugin? Who's updating your custom plugin to make sure that it continues to be compliant with the WordPress core and the other features that you have installed in your website? And so I found this article, and again, like I should say, the article found me, and I just kind of want to go and take a look at it with you, because to me, this really hits home. If we open up this, and I'll give it a little bit more space on the screen here, and as we jump into this, it says AI-generated computer code is rife with references to non-existent third-party libraries. Yes, creating a golden opportunity for supply chain attacks that poison legitimate programs with malicious packages that can steal data, plant backdoors, and carry out other nefarious actions, newly published research shows. Okay. What I liked about the article was it went right to it. Like, here's supply chain attacks. Since AI is grabbing this information from all these different sources, some of those sources might not be good sources. Some of them might have bad intentions. And so I wanted to be super clear about that. Like when I say you might develop a plugin in AI and it might, through the back door, somehow shovel all of your information to some other third party, you might think I'm crazy. You might think that's insane. I think that's very real world. I mean, we are living in an age where major corporations and government offices, the IRS being one of them, is being hacked for consumer information. So if you think your website's not going to be targeted as an easy target, especially if you're using AI tools constructed by anybody, I think you would be, I hate to say naive, uninformed. You would be uninformed. Okay. So what I like about this article was the number of samples, right? So the study, which used 16 of the most widely used language models to generate 576,000 code samples, found that 440,000 of the package dependencies contained were hallucinated. So hallucinations in AI, it's a pretty common term, but in case you haven't heard it, hallucinations in AI is like when AI doesn't know what to say, it just says something crazy, right? It's like talking to a 6-year-old. You say, "Hey, why is the sky blue?" And they go, "Because it's blue, dummy, but because there's water up there." They just hallucinate and they say whatever's on their mind, right? So that's what AI can do sometimes. And so it says, meaning they were non-existent. Open source models hallucinated the most, with 21% of the dependencies linked to non-existent libraries. A dependency is an essential code component that a separate piece of code requires to work properly. Dependencies save developers the hassle of rewriting code and are an essential part of modern supply chain. You might hear a lot of WordPress people say that WordPress is based in abstractions, right? So when you look at WordPress at the back of a WordPress website for code, there'll be a lot of things that are just like phrases. I say phrases. Phrases probably isn't the right thing to say, but they'll be like little short pieces of code. That little short piece of code generates a giant piece of content on the site, and you go, "Well, how did that little piece of code generate that giant piece of content?" It's because it's an abstraction. The PHP has a giant thing like a dependency that says, okay, if you put this little piece of code in, it's going to take this and use that, right? So that's how that works. And what that paragraph was saying that AI, when it doesn't have a dependency that does that thing, it just kind of makes it up like it exists, but it doesn't. And then your plugin doesn't work, long and short. Okay. So package hallucination flashbacks, right? These non-existent dependencies represent a threat to the software supply chain by exacerbating so-called dependency confusion attacks. These attacks work by causing software packages to access the wrong component dependency. For instance, by publishing a malicious package and giving it the same name as the legitimate one, but with a later version stamp. Software that depends on the package will, in some cases, choose the malicious version rather than the legitimate one because the former appears to be more recent. Okay. So, what that's saying is, let's say a legitimate company makes the ABC package, and then an illegitimate company that wants to steal your data through your website, they make another package and they call it the ABC package. But they call theirs the ABC package updated May 9th, 2025. Well, since that's the newest update, that's what AI is going to focus on. They're going to go, oh, well, this one's called the same thing. It's got a newer update date. We're going to take the latest information, right? But that latest information is corrupt. So it's not from the proper sources, okay? Because AI is looking at a bunch of sources. So, also known as package confusion, this form of attack was first demonstrated in 2021 in a proof of concept exploit that executed counterfeit code on networks belonging to some of the biggest companies on the planet, Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla included. It's one type of technique used in software supply chain hacks, which aim to poison software at its very source in an attempt to infect all users downstream. That's why I was saying who's responsible. Like if you give me a plugin and I put it in your website and it attacks every user's computer after using your website, and those people want to sue you, and then you say, well, that's Manana Nomas's fault because you put that plugin on my site. I'm not having that conversation. I am not having that conversation. If I'm going to use somebody else's supplied product, we're going to be very clear that we are not responsible for the outcome of that product. I am currently working on documentation to go into our terms and conditions that covers this exact scenario. This article, I think, did a much better job of my paranoia. So I may seem paranoid. I know that I might seem paranoid, but when I have so many people that honestly have no idea how the website even works telling me, just plug this in, I made it on AI, you can understand like there's a giant gap in understanding there. There's a huge gap in understanding. And so I get it. People don't want to pay developers to build them something custom. They're like, why should I have to pay to have something built custom if I could just ask AI? Well, if you ask AI and you get some corrupt piece of junk added to your website, you may be fiscally responsible for its damages. And I'm sounding very, very paranoid right now. I know that I am, but I want to be super, super clear about the topic. So it says, in AI, hallucinations occur when a large learning model produces outputs that are factually incorrect, nonsensical, or completely unrelated to the task it was assigned. Hallucinations have long dogged LMMs, long language models, because they degrade their usefulness and trustworthiness and have proven vexingly difficult to predict and remedy. In a paper scheduled to be presented at the 2025 USNICS Security Symposium, they have dubbed the phenomenon package hallucination, meaning software code packages, like little packages of code, right? For the study, the researchers ran 30 tests, 16 in Python programming languages and 14 in JavaScript that generated 19,200 code samples per test. Okay, so that's a lot. 576,000 code samples. Of the 2.23 million package references contained in those samples, because it's grabbing stuff from everywhere, right? 440, 445, or 19.7% pointed to packages that didn't exist. So when AI was making something, 20% of what it made didn't exist. I think this comes from people asking AI to do crazy stuff that never got developed yet. I keep saying, you'll hear me say, everybody thinks that we are in Star Trek and it's not Star Trek yet. Like, when they walk into the break room and like, make me a Pepsi, and the machine goes and there's a Pepsi. That doesn't really happen yet, right? And I think that that's what people think is happening with AI. I think that they are inventing things they think they need for their website, which obviously they don't need. It's never been done before, right? And so they go, I need this, and then they tell AI to make it. AI goes, okay, that sounds crazy, but whatever, you asked for it, here you go. And they make it up. They hallucinate the answer. And it says here that 19.7% pointed to packages that didn't exist. So among these 440,445 package hallucinations, 205,474 had unique package names. Okay, so that's pretty interesting, right? One of the things that makes package hallucinations potentially useful in supply chain attacks is that 43% of the package hallucinations were repeated over 10 queries. In addition, the researchers wrote 58% of the time, a hallucinated package is repeated more than once in 10 iterations, which shows that the majority of hallucinations are not simply random errors, but a repeatable phenomenon that persists across multiple iterations. This is significant because a persistent hallucination is more valuable for malicious actors looking to exploit its vulnerability and makes the hallucination attack vector a more viable threat. Translate. What that means is, if you're a bad actor, if you're someone that wants to put something in the back end of somebody's website and you make a fake code packet, large learning models have a propensity to identify it and reuse it over and over and over again instead of just some kind of random finding that it comes up with. Okay? So, in other words, many package hallucinations aren't random one-off errors. Rather, specific names on non-existent packages are repeated over and over. I already said all that. Let's skip down. The study uncovered disparities in large learning models and programming languages that produce the most package hallucinations. The average percentage of package hallucinations produced by open source LLMs such as CodeLlama and DeepSeek was nearly 22%, compared with a little more than 5% by commercial models. Code written in Python resulted in fewer hallucinations than JavaScript. JavaScript is majorly used in WordPress, for example, with an average of almost 16%, compared with a little over 21% of JavaScript. Asked what caused the differences, Spacklin wrote, and I don't know that we really need to go into what made that difference. Here is my point. And let's just figure out the random thing here at the bottom. It says the findings are the latest to demonstrate the inherent untrustworthiness of large learning model output, with Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott predicting that 95% of code will be AI generated within 5 years. Here's hoping developers heed the message. Here, I'm going to go back to, and Dan Gooden wrote the article. So, or is the senior security editor. Dan Gooden is a senior, I want to give him full credit. Dan Gooden is senior security editor at Ars Technica, where he oversees coverage of malware, computer espionage, botnets, hardware hacking, encryption, and passwords. In his spare time, he enjoys gardening, cooking, and following the independent music scene. Dan is based in San Francisco. Follow him here at Mastodon or here at Blue Sky, and contact him on Signal at danars.82. All right. It might seem ridiculous that I just read a whole article to you on this video. But when I say something to my clients, or when I say something in a Lifter LMS broadcast, or in a WP Tonic podcast, or in a Whose WordPress Agency Is This podcast, apparently I'm all over the place. When I say these things, I get the impression that some people say, oh, Kurt's just being paranoid, or Kurt doesn't know what he's talking about. Kurt's not a developer. Kurt says he's an implementer. For years, I've said, I am not a developer. I am an implementer. I am an agency. I'm like the best project manager in the WordPress space that I know, but I'm not a developer. I'm not a coder. I'm very specific about that. And so a lot of people will say, well, since Kurt says he's not a coder and he's not a developer, that's why he says not to use large learning models for plugin development. That is not the reason. The reason is because if you don't have a good foundation, a core knowledge in how these things work, and how these things are put together, and how these things are supposed to operate and be compliant with other things within your website, you are giving yourself a future migraine headache. I can't say this loud enough. Like, I need to shout it so the people in the back can hear it. If you don't give yourself the best foot forward and have the most secure, the most vibrant software in your website, like, as a WordPress agency, customers come to us all the time and they say, hey, our website seems to be running kind of slow. Would you be willing to do an audit or take a look at it for us? I say, sure, we can do that for you. And then we open up the website, and oh my goodness, we've got 120 or 130 plugins in there, 15 of which I've never heard of before. And my WordPress username was founded in 2004, right? So that is 21 years. So 21 years of working in WordPress. I'll open up a customer site and I'll go, ooh, what is all this? And then I start, well, what's this? Well, what's that? And then there's this thing where it says visit site. Like when you go to a plugin, it says visit site. So sometimes You click visit site and you go oh, okay. So this was, some quick offer to do something, and it'll be like to send animated balloons on an email or something, right? You go, well, okay, whatever, and you start going through these things, and then you go, okay, yeah, your website is slow. You've got these horribly bandwidth hungry items in your website that are completely non-necessary, basically useless. And so I use high bandwidth required tools all the time. So I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. For instance, I do use a lot of Lifter LMS. I've built a lot of WooCommerce sites. Buddy Boss, huge, right? So you want to have really good hosting. If you're running a Buddy Boss site with Lifter LMS, you're going to want to have a really good hosting package, right? But you'll notice I just rambled off like 3 or 4 tools there, right? I mentioned all the Fluent stuff, Fluent CRM, Fluent Form, Fluent, right? So, and remember at the beginning of this when I said, if I had a problem with Lifter, I would call Chris. If I had a problem with Presto Player, I would call Adam. If I had a problem with any of the Fluent products, I would go to Managed Ninjas, WP, and it would get handled. But when you put a bunch of crud in your website with no real author, who do you go to for that support? And if you want to come to an agency like mine with these products in there that fail and break over time, and you say, oh, I just need you to take a quick look at my WordPress site to see why it's slow or why I have the white screen of death, and you've got some of these like AI wrote it for me custom plugins in your website, you automatically transfer over to the hourly rate and it takes whatever it takes to fix it. And in most cases, I'm going to tell you to probably remove the product anyway. I want to be positive. I want to end this call in a very positive way. Here's how I can be very positive. Folks, you're going this direction because you want something. You want something you think doesn't exist. There are 60,000 plugins in the WordPress repository, 60,000 plus. Chances are what you're looking for does exist. You just really don't know how to find it yet. And so agencies like mine, we are very proficient at finding the right tools for the right customers and usually for the right price. And so we can help you in those ways. So in a very positive way, let me tell you, you don't have to custom make all these weird things. Chances are it already exists and someone else is already responsible. Like I use that word responsible, right? Someone else is already responsible for it. Like they do the updates with the WordPress updates. They make sure that it's compliant with other commonly used tools in WordPress. And so if you come to an agency like Manana No Mas based in Hutchinson, Kansas, uh, you say, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z with my website. Great. Let's take a look at the tools that are available that handle X, Y, and Z. Let's see which one of these tools fits your use case the best. Let's take a look at which one of these tools fits your budget the best. Let's implement that. I would recommend implementing it on a staging site first to make sure it doesn't interfere with your other things on your website. If everything's good there, let's put it in your production site and let's go. Bob's your uncle. We're off to the races. There is a way to do things. I have been doing this for 21 years. I am launching an apprentice program to teach other people how to do this and make a living. I am teaching people how to grow their own agencies. I am in tons of podcasts. Folks, there are ways to do things that are credible, and there are ways to do things that are non-credible. And unfortunately, in the internet, when you do things that are non-credible, there's generally some kind of blowback that's gonna happen. And you might get good results out of the gate, okay? But that's the wolf in sheep's clothing thing, right? You might get good results out of the gate and you might think that you've solved a problem. But what you've really done is you have created a much larger problem that is unseen. And right when you need it the most, right when your project is growing, right when you have an audience, right when you're making sales, right when things are moving along your way, something goes horribly wrong. And then it's emergency, right? It's all hands on deck. And that's when things get expensive and frustrating. So I'm trying to save you that down the road. Folks, I'm going to wrap this one up. Have yourself a wonderful day. Um, Again, from a positive note, we're here to help. The warning note, you try to take that cheap artificial intelligence way out of things, chances are it's not going to work out. Chances are it's not going to work out. If it does, well, now you've got to be hyper vigilant to make sure it doesn't come back and bite you later. If you need us, we're here to help. manananomas.com. If you like the content of these types of messages, folks, like, follow, share, do all those things, because I've been doing this for years and we're only at like 100 subscribers on YouTube. So apparently I never asked enough. So now I'm asking. If you would like, share, follow, subscribe, that would be amazing. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.